Hello, teachers. I hope you all are doing well. It is time for all of us to begin this year's learning journey of ours. Here is this year's first Shikshana Sambrama module for English. Let us begin by looking into what this module has to offer us. For this module, our goal is to achieve the learning outcomes for the month of July, and we aim to do this through experiential teaching learning activities. By the end of this module, we can expect to learn experiential teaching learning activities for prose, poetry, and grammar concepts for this month. We also will understand how we can use resources to have successful experiential classroom transactions and gain some inputs to help us build language skills. In this module, we will begin with prose, move on to poetry, then grammar, and finally, we will receive some language building inputs. For prose and poetry, we will go through a common experiential teaching learning activity that can be applied across all grades while using certain chapters as examples. For grammar, we will discuss three main concepts, which are articles, tenses, and homophones, and look at common experiential teaching learning activities and materials that we can use to help learners understand them better. We'll also look at tips to modify and apply these activities across higher and lower learning levels after the activity. We'll then continue with suggestions for discussion regarding how teachers can make the activity more suitable for their own classrooms and contextualize them. Let us begin with our prose activity. This activity is called How Do You Feel? The learning outcomes from the curriculum covered are to set the context for the understanding of the prose, connect ideas that he or she has inferred through reading and interaction with his or her personal experiences. In addition to these learning outcomes, the learning outcomes from National Assessment Survey that are being covered here is comprehending the given text. Along with building comprehension and speaking skills, the goals of this activity are to provide English language exposure to learners through prose, to also help learners form language connections by comprehending vocabulary or phrases or even concepts from the text. The third goal for the activity would be to assist learners and help them to practice making conversation in everyday life. Let us begin. First, prepare for this activity by picking out specific situations from the prose or the chapter that you are about to teach. These can be situations that involve emotions or reactions from the character in the story. The situations can help you describe certain words or concepts to children, so choose them accordingly. Let's take the chapter The Child Who Saved the Forest, for example. In this chapter, since we want the children to understand the concept of friendly, and we also want them to learn how to use this in their conversations, we are picking the situation where Prem goes for walks in the forest and becomes friendly with the animals.
First, provide the situation to the learners and ask them to act it out. Here, the first step of language learning happens through exposure.
Rihanna, imagine you go for a walk to a beautiful forest. During your walk, you meet many kind animals. Imagine the animals around you. Show us how you would behave with them.
Translate the sentence if required.
ನೀವು ಪ್ರಾಣಿಗಳೊಂದಿಗೆ ಹೇಗೆ ವರ್ತಿಸುತ್ತೀರಿ ಎಂಬುದನ್ನು ನಮಗೆ ತೋರಿಸಿರಿ.
Once they act this out, ask them how they feel as the next step. This is where children are going to form connections with what they are learning.
How do you feel with the animals, Rihanna? ಪ್ರಾಣಿಗಳ ಜೊತೆ ನಿಮಗೆ ಹೇಗೆ ಅನಿಸುತ್ತದೆ?
Allow them to reply in their mother tongue. This helps them relate to the character.
ಅವರ ಜೊತೆಯಲ್ಲಿ ನಾನು ಸಂತೋಷ ಪಡುತ್ತೇನೆ ಮ್ಯಾಮ್.
Once they do, supply them with the right English words, phrases, or vocabulary for the same. This helps the learner practice.
Do you feel like you are their friend? ನೀವು ಪ್ರಾಣಿಗಳ ಸ್ನೇಹಿತರೆಂದು ಭಾವಿಸುತ್ತೀರಾ? ಎಸ್ ಮ್ಯಾಮ್. ನೀವು ಇದನ್ನು ಇಂಗ್ಲಿಷ್ನಲ್ಲಿ ವಿವರಿಸಬೇಕಾದರೆ ನೀವು ಹೇಳುತ್ತೀರಿ, I am friendly with the animals in the forest. Repeat after me. I am friendly with the animals in the forest.
Now, help them use this in conversations by giving them a template.
Ravi, ask Rehana, how are you with the animals in the forest? Rehana, you can reply saying, I am friendly with the animals in the forest.
How are you with the animals in the forest?
I am friendly with the animals in the forest.
Now, as you begin reading the chapter out to the learners, you can help them form connections to their own emotions from the situation that they acted out to the character in the chapter. Reinforce the word that you taught them by repeating the word as you read the chapter.
After some days, he became friendly with the animals in the forest. ನಿಮ್ಮಂತೆಯೇ ಪ್ರೇಮ್ ಕಾಡಿನಲ್ಲಿರುವ ಪ್ರಾಣಿಗಳೊಂದಿಗೆ ಫ್ರೆಂಡ್ಲಿ ಆಗಿದ್ದರು.
Here are some discussion points regarding this activity. Can you use this activity to teach different types of words? How? What can you do to make this activity more engaging in the classroom for your learners? For example, can you add props to this activity in your classroom and make it better? Here are a few tips for this activity. Modify the activity based on the goal. That is, think about if you want to teach feeling words, action words, particular kinds of vocabulary or common phrases, and modify the activity accordingly. Allow the learners to express how they feel in their mother tongue and then translate the meaning for them or provide the English term to them. This will help the learners understand what the word or the phrase or the vocabulary is far better. Do not hesitate to repeat the meaning or the usage of the word or phrase that you are teaching in the mother tongue, as long as you help them practice the word or the phrase in English while they are doing this in conversation.
Now, let's move on to poetry. The activity is called Find the Line. The learning outcomes from the curriculum covered are recite poems with appropriate expressions and intonation. Recite and share poems among peers. Response to different kinds of instructions. In addition to this activity will also be covering the National Assessment Survey learning outcome, which is reads small prints, poems, charts around the classroom fluently. In this activity, we will provide language exposure through poetry and build listening skills. We will also assist learners to build reading fluency and practice reading skills. We will help learners to connect to poetry and develop memory through poetry recitation. And last, we will help learners recognize and read keywords. Prepare for this activity by creating poetry line strips, by writing each line of the poem on one strip of paper. You can do it just as displayed on the screen for you. Additionally, circle or highlight keywords or hard words in each line. You can use the hard words document given on Teachopia for the particular chapter you are teaching as a reference for the same. Once you do this, keep the strips of paper at the end of the classroom.
Help learners get a good exposure to the poem by reading the poem with correct intonation. To help with intonation, you can play the audiovisual reading of the poem found on Teachopia in your classroom, or use it as a reference to learn the right intonation before you read it in your class. Here is a sample of the audiovisual reading of the poem Tamarind for your reference.
A poetry called Tamarind. Nobody knows where my tamarind stood, just by a winding lane. Each year it gave me fruit and shade and drew me to my home again. I love to sit beneath her shady boughs and rest up for a while, to gaze out upon the distant blue hills with laughter and a smile. And now that I'm back, I'm eager to find my tamarind again. I hasten down to that favorite spot. I search, but search in vain. Then I stop and I stare. I stand quite still. I listen to my heart. That magnificent tree that was my life has just been ripped apart. I turn to the hills, my eyes filled with tears. For sure, I've lost my soul. Where once it stood tall, there's nothing there now, merely an empty hole.
Now, read the poem a second time. Read it slowly. Ask the learners to listen carefully to you as you read it this time. Class, listen to the poem Tamarind carefully. As you read each line out, ask them to underline the same keywords you have underlined on the poem strips kept behind the classroom. Nobody knows where my tamarind stood. Underline the word tamarind. Now, instruct the students that you are going to play a small game. Every time you call a line from the poem, they must find where that line is by looking for it behind the classroom. Children, we are going to play a small game. I will keep a few strips of paper that has the lines of the poem at the end of the classroom. Every time I read a line, you have to get me the correct line. Explain to the students that they need to make sure that the line they find has the same keyword you have asked them to underline earlier. Make sure you bring the correct line to me. Remember the words underlined in each line? Make sure each line you find has the same word as you have underlined in your book. Now call out one line at a time and ask them to find it by mentioning the keyword in that particular line. Give them the first line as an example if required. Let's practice with the first line. Nobody knows where my tamarind stood. Can you find it? Look for the line with the word tamarind underlined. Once a child has found the correct line, ask them to read it for the class. You can also assist them while they read or read the line and ask them to repeat if they are a slow learner. Ma'am, ನನಗೆ ಸಿಕ್ಕಿತು. Good work. Read the line you have found. ಅದನ್ನು ಓದಿ. Nobody knows where my tamarind stood. Do this for every line till a paragraph or the whole poem is complete. This also depends on what your reading or recitation goal is for the day. Once all the lines are found, have the learners stand in order and read out the lines one at a time. You can have other learners replace them in the line and follow the same pattern. Nobody knows where my tamarind stood, just by a winding lane. Each year it gave me fruit and shade and drew me to my home again. Now to discuss a few points based on our previous activity. Can you think of ways you can use this activity to build on your learner's vocabulary and comprehension? For example, saying the word and finding the meaning. What can you do to make this activity more engaging in the classroom for your learners? You could add actions as you call out each line in the poem to make it more interesting. Here are a few tips as you conduct this activity. You can alter the activity by giving learners one line each and jumbling them in a line. Then reading out the whole poem once and asking them to stand in order as you read. Then asking them to read the whole poem out one at a time. Through this, they get to have fun and learn the poem. Second, for young learners, you can add pictures of objects in each line along with the line to help them understand the poem as they build fluency. And third, you can add action to each line to excite the learners and build their memory. Now that we've discussed prose and poetry, let's go through some grammar concepts we are dealing with in the upcoming month. Articles, tenses, and homophones. First, let's take up tenses. Let's look at a video that can help us explain the concept of tenses to our children.
Today, we are going to learn about tenses. How do tenses help us? Tenses help us understand when an action has happened, is happening, or is going to happen. Look at these sentences. He combs his hair every day. I ran to the market. I will walk tomorrow. All of these sentences have action words. But how can we find out when they have happened? We use our knowledge about tenses to find this out. Let's start with the simple present tense. He brushes his teeth every day. Or I like to run in the park. It tells us if an action is happening right now. For example, I feel hungry. Or the puris are ready. When we're talking about ourselves, someone we are talking to, or a group of people, animals, or things, the action word in the sentence does not change. This rule applies to sentences that begin with I, you, we, or they. For example, I eat idlis. You can fry papads. They go to work. When we want to describe an action that another person, another animal, or another thing is doing, in the simple present tense, we need to change the verb by adding s, es, or ies at the end. This rule applies to sentences that begin with he, she, or it. For example, he eats idlis. She fries papads. It likes to drink milk. Now let's talk about simple past tense. The simple past tense describes actions that have already happened. For example, they played cricket yesterday. I sang a song last week. He studied in the morning. We add ed, ied, or d to the action word when we want to describe it in the simple past tense. For example, I played football yesterday. She cried last night. I liked what you wore on Sunday. There are some action words that are spelt and pronounced differently when they are described in the simple past tense. For example, I swam yesterday. I ate dosa for breakfast. I sang a song for Amma's birthday. And finally, we have simple future tense. Simple future tense tells us about actions that are going to happen in the future. For example, I will go shopping tomorrow. He is going to Bangalore tomorrow. We will go to the market tomorrow. When we want to describe a word in simple future tense, we add words like will not, or phrases like going to after it. For example, I will go to the market. I will not go to school tomorrow. I'm going to do my homework in the evening.
Please note that video resources like this are available on the Teachopia app on your phone. Simply download the app to get access to this material that can be taken into your classroom for a fun and wholesome learning experience. Now, let's see how we can teach tenses to help learners understand past, present, and future tenses with an activity called Yesterday, Everyday, Tomorrow. The goal of this activity is quite simple. It is to form connections and understand simple tenses. It is also to get exposure to the usage of simple tenses in everyday routine. It is to assist students to practice using the right tense with regard to the right time zone. And last, it will help assist the students to practice using the right tense with regard to the first person singular and the second person singular. To prepare for this activity, create 3 small posters of different time zones using chart paper, namely yesterday, everyday, and tomorrow. Place them in 3 different corners of your classroom. Use Kannada labels below if required as per the level and understanding of your students. If needed, explain the 3 time zones to them. Now to begin, create an exposure by calling 3 volunteers from your class and whisper an everyday action that they will need to act out for the rest of the class. Act as if you are brushing your teeth for the class. Place each of them in the 3 corners you have labeled: yesterday, everyday, and tomorrow. Ask the class to guess what they're doing. Children, can you guess the action they are enacting? Allow the class to guess in their own words. Hello, Judu. Brushing. Once the class guesses in their own words, supply them with the correct form of the verb. This is how you help them form connections. Good. They are brushing their teeth. Ask the learners standing in the corner to continue acting. As they are acting, point and talk about their action according to the time zone they are in. He brushes his teeth every day. She brushed her teeth yesterday. He will brush his teeth tomorrow. Now, help each of the learners talk about the action they are doing themselves by telling them what to say using the right form of the verb in the sentence according to their time zone. You will say, I brush my teeth every day. I brush my teeth every day. You will say, I brushed my teeth yesterday. I brushed my teeth yesterday. You will say, I will brush my teeth tomorrow. I will brush my teeth tomorrow. Repeat this activity for a set of everyday actions. For example, riding a bike, drinking tea, studying, etc. This will help the learners undergo the language learning process called trial and practice. Act as if you are riding a bicycle for the class. Use different groups of learners to do the action each time. So the whole class gets a chance to talk about themselves doing the action, as well as pointing at someone else doing the action across each of the time zones. Now, tell the learners you are going to practice speaking about the same actions again. But this time, you are not going to help them. They need to speak about it themselves, as this will open the opportunity to both assist and clarify the learners with their understanding. Let's practice speaking about the same actions again. I want you to tell me what to say this time. Initiate their speaking by asking them questions about another person doing the action in each time zone. Ravi, when does Nikhil brush? He brushes every day. Or while talking about their own actions in each time zone. Nikhil, when do you brush? I brush every day. And now to the discussion points based on our previous activity. It was fun, wasn't it? I'm sure your learners in your classroom will have all the more fun doing this activity with one another. Here are a few discussion points. How can you modify this activity to teach learners how to modify verbs for each tenses by adding suffixes? Try and think about it, as this activity definitely has scope for more changes and additions, and you can help the learners have more fun and more interaction in different ways so they don't get bored. Second, what can you do to make this activity more engaging in the classroom for your learner? Maybe you could ask the learners to form a clock and run backwards or forwards, or remain stationary while making a statement about their own action. Here are a few tips to conduct this activity. You can change time zones depending on your learner level. For example, you could use last week, every week, next week, or last year, every year, next year. Anything that makes sense to your learners is applicable. Second, you can use flashcards to help learners understand how to use the appropriate suffixes according to the tense. How can we do this? We could ask the learners to stand in the past tense zone and hold a flashcard called ED and add to it the action words as they perform and learn. Or you could make learners stand in the present tense zone who can hold the card IES or S or ES and do the same. Third, you can help learners understand how to speak with the right tense using first person plural and third person plural by having a group of learners stand together in one of the corners. Fourth, for advanced learners, have them create a schedule about the actions they did in the previous week and the present week and what they plan to do in the weeks ahead.
Now let's see how we can transact the grammar topic of articles. Let's look at a video that can help us explain the concept of articles to our children. Let's look at a video that can help us explain the concept of articles to our children.
Let's learn about articles. A, an, and the. Here are a few sentences. Let's read them together. This is a pencil. The pencil is broken. I ate an apple. We use the words a, an, and the before the nouns pencil and apple. But why? A, an, and the are words we use before some types of nouns. We use a before a singular noun that begins with a consonant. For example, a cat, a hat, a chair, a house. We can say, this is a cat. We put his bag on a chair. We use an before a singular noun that starts with a vowel. For example, an apple, an umbrella, an egg, an ice cube. For example, I am eating an apple, or I bought an umbrella. So, when do we use the word the? Let's read these sentences where the is used. The apples are really tasty. The teacher is in the classroom. We use the before a particular singular or plural noun. What does this mean? This means that when the person who is speaking and the person who is listening both know the noun that is spoken about, the is used before the noun. For example, I will give you the book, or where is the teacher? Here, both the speaker and listener of the sentence know which book and which teacher they are talking about. Here are more examples. Where is the cat? The teacher is in the class. My bag is in the classroom. So, let's review. We use a before a singular noun that begins with a consonant. We use an before a singular noun that starts with a vowel. We use the before a particular singular or plural noun like the teacher, the books, the chalk.
Let's help learners understand the use of the articles a, an, and the through an activity called Articles Hopscotch. The goal of this activity is to help learners understand when articles are used, use the right articles for the corresponding letter or word, and understand how to use articles in a sentence. To prepare for the activity, you will need 2 sets of materials. 1. Flashcards with articles used along with the correct word. Now, flashcards that include images of the words would be more effective, especially for young learners. Let's see how to prepare this. A simple article mat that can be created with chalk on the floor by using paper stuck together. Now, each block should contain words or letters or images. Now, that depends on the teaching goal. Next, to begin, expose the learners to the usage of articles by displaying the word cards to them and reading them along with the entire class.
Children, let's read these words together.
Now ask the learners to move to the area where you have created your article mat.
Children, come and stand around this mat on the floor.
Instruct the learners to walk across the mat, 1 block at a time. Now, as they stand in each block, use the correct article to read out the word in the box and ask them to repeat it. Stress on the article as you call out the words. A lime,
A lime.
an orange,
An orange.
the nets.
The nets.
After a few rounds, have learners walk across their mat on their own and do this all by themselves.
A tail.
Now, here are a few discussion points based on the previous activity. One is to think of ways you can modify the article mat to teach different points about articles. For example, which articles go with consonants versus vowels? Second, what you can do to make this activity more engaging in the classroom for your learners is you can add objects to the mat and ask them to call out the right article as they go. Here are a few tips. You can play a game with them where a dice is rolled, or you call out the number of the box from the start line. They will jump over to the box and mention the article along with the word.
Jump to box number 4. A lime.
You can also use letters within the mat and supply learners with the right article to use for the corresponding letter. It can be either a consonant or a vowel. Next, you can also print and use images by arranging them as a mat. With older learners, help them build sentences with articles where the article the can be used after mentioning the object in the previous sentence, along with an adjective or a verb.
This is a teddy bear. The teddy bear is cute. Now, let's learn a little bit about transacting homophones. Let's look at a video that can help us explain the concept of homophones to our children.
Hello, and welcome to our exciting journey into the world of words. Today, we will learn about homophones through some fun examples. Are you ready? Let's get started. First, let's understand what homophones are. Homophones are words that sound the same but have different meanings and spellings. To help you understand better, let's look at some examples. Now, let's explore the words flower and flower. While they may sound the same, they have different meanings. A flower is a beautiful part of a plant, and flour is a fine powder used for making chapatis. Can you think of any sentences using these words? She received a beautiful flower bouquet on her birthday. Amma used the wheat flour to make rotis. Now, let's look at the words sun and sun. The sun is the bright shining star in our sky, giving us light and warmth. On the other hand, a son is a male child. These words sound the same, but they have different meanings. Can you think of a sentence using both words? The sun shines brightly in the sky during the day. My teacher's son loves playing with his friends all day. Let's look at the words bear and bear. A bear is a large animal found in the wild, while bear means without covering or clothing. These words sound the same, but they have different meanings and spellings. How about we make sentences using both these words? We saw a bear in the zoo during our visit. The baby's feet were bare as she enjoyed walking on the sand. Great job, everyone. You have learnt about homophones. Remember, homophones are words that sound the same but have different meanings and spellings. By understanding them, you can become a master of words. We hope you enjoyed this fun-filled video on homophones. Thank you for joining us today.
How can we help learners understand the concept of homophones through an activity? Let's take a look at an activity called Sound Alike Clap. The goal of this activity is to help learners understand the concept of homophones or sound alike words. It is also to recognize words that sound alike but have different spellings among a group of words. And to understand how to use sound alikes in a sentence. First, write pairs of words on the board. You can use rhyming words to help children differentiate between words that rhyme and words that sound alike. Tell the learners you are going to read out a set of words, but whenever they hear two words that sound the same, they need to react in a particular way. For example, they can clap. Children, clap every time you hear words that sound alike. Once you're done doing this and going through a set of words that have homophones together, help the learners form connections and practice this. Show picture cards or draw images of a pair of homophone words. For example, hair and hair. Can you tell me what these pictures are? Allow learners to point out and answer this in their own words, even if it is in their mother tongue. Mola. Hair. Once they do this, draw their attention to the fact that both words sound the same in English, but they have different meanings. The first picture is of a bunch of hair, Kodulu, while the other picture is of a hair, Mola. Both sound the same in English, but the spellings and meanings are different. To reinforce this concept and help them practice, point and call out each of the words along with their spelling. This is a hair. H-A-R-E. It is not hair. H-A-I-R. This is hair. H-A-I-R. It is not a hair. H-A-R-E. Repeat this for a few pairs. Then have each learner come up and try it on their own, preferably for the same set of words you have used before. This is hair. H-A-I-R. It is not hair. H-A-R-E. Here are a few discussion points for this activity. Can you use the idea with a few modifications to teach another grammar concept? For example, teaching homonyms. What can you do to make this activity more engaging in the classroom for your learners? For example, sing a song about homophones. Here are a few tips. First, for all the learners, ask them to find sound-alike pairs in their textbooks. For example, from a particular chapter or poem. Second, if you have taught articles before teaching homophones, see how you can remind learners how to use articles before the homophone you are talking about. For example, is it a hair or an hair? Third, ask learners for examples of this from their own mother tongue. Does their language have sound-alike words also? Now, teachers, let's look at how we can build our own language skills. Today's topic is learning the usage of have, take, do, and make in English.
Hi everybody! Today we'll be exploring the differences between 4 common English verbs: have, take, do, and make. By the end of this video, you will clearly understand when and how to use each of these verbs. Let's get started. Let's begin with have. We use have when talking about activities or experiences we possess or experience. For example, we have a bath to clean ourselves. We have lunch to satisfy our hunger, and have dinner to enjoy an evening meal. Now, let's move on to take. We use take when we acquire or grab something, or when we perform an action. We take a break to rest and relax. The students take an exam to prove their knowledge, and take a look to observe or inspect something. Next up is do. We use do when talking about performing tasks, activities, or actions. We do the cooking when we prepare a meal. We do our best when we give our maximum effort, and do business when we engage in commercial activities. Finally, we have make. We use make when we create, produce, or cause something to happen. We make a difference when we contribute positively, make money when we earn income, and make mistakes when we commit errors. Let's recap. We use have when we possess or undergo something. Take when we acquire or perform an action. Do when we carry out tasks or activities. And make when we create or cause something to happen. I hope you all have understood the difference between have, take, do, and make.
Remember, practice is a key to mastering these verbs, so make sure to use them in your everyday conversation.
Now that we've come to the end of our module, let's try and see where we can find the resources we've been talking about to you all throughout our module. You will find it on our app, Teachopia. Once you download the app and open it, it will show you a home page. And once this screen appears on your mobile phones, you can click on the content button right below. The content will lead you to 2 kinds of content: curricular content and other content. You can choose the grade that you want to prepare on. Once you do so, it will open to the various subjects that are available: math, EVS, and English for 4th grade. When we choose English, we're going to get a list of chapters available for the subject and the grade. Once you choose your grade and your language and the chapter that you require, you will be given a list of resources like concept guide and lesson plans, which are both available in English and Kannada, and the newest edition called audio visual resources. This is what we've been telling you all throughout our module. These resources will lead you to 3 kinds of audio-visual files, which are hard words, poetry recitation, and story reading. Clicking on those will lead you to videos that you can use in your classroom to explain hard words, to have their right kind of pronunciation. You can also use them to recite a poem with the right kind of intonation, and had the story read out for the children in the form of a video. Thank you very much for your patience, and we hope you all had a lovely learning experience. You can wait for more of these in the upcoming months. Thank you.